It looked like it was going to be a match made in heaven between Red Bull Racing and Porsche, but the collaboration between the two just never got off the ground. The German luxury car brand has now given up on the attempt to start in Formula 1, and the Volkswagen Group will therefore only have Audi on the starting grid in F1 for 2026. But what went wrong between Red Bull Racing and Porsche? Why were these two brands unable to merge together to create a potentially dominant force in Formula 1's future? Well, before we get into that, just a reminder that GPFans.com and GPFans Global has all of your latest news in Formula 1. But now, let's dive into the special. The history of Porsche in Formula 1. Now, let's not pretend that people weren't excited by the prospect of Porsche arriving in F1. In a sport that can easily take a road towards becoming stale when one team or driver is dominating the sport, the arrival of a huge name like Porsche to the grid certainly has the potential to shake things up, both as an iconic name in motorsport and a new face to the grid trying to get to grips with the technicality of Formula 1. But a 2026 arrival in F1 wouldn't be the first time the German car company has been seen in the sport. All the way back to the 1930s, the founder of Porsche AG, Ferdinand Porsche, was designing Grand Prix cars for Mercedes and others. It wasn't until 1961 that a single-seater car arrived in Formula 1 with the Porsche name on it, but unfortunately, that car wasn't competitive at all. It would take another year before a win would come for the constructor, with the Porsche 804 taking victory at the French Grand Prix in 1962. This, however, would be their only win that year, and the company withdrew from the sport at the end of the season due to the high running costs of controlling a team. That would pretty much be the end of their run in F1, but McLaren called on the services of the engine brand around 20 years later, as the now Woking-based constructor used Porsche water-cooled engines in their cars. However, the company's name of Porsche was left off the engine. This would mean they wouldn't really get much of the credit, particularly in the public eye, for the 1984 and 85 constructors' titles won by McLaren and the 84, 85 and 86 drivers' titles won by Niki Lauda and Alain Prost. There was also a brief relationship with the Arrows team in 1991, but this run came to an abrupt end when Cosworth were brought in as the new power supplier of the team. Then, suddenly, at the start of 2022, the Volkswagen Group indicated that it wanted to get back into the Formula 1 business, looking to push their way in time for the new engine regulations coming into the sport in 2026. For Audi, the search eventually ended with a partnership with Sauber. The Germans have now acquired a minority interest in the team, which will be built up to 75% over time. In the background, Audi is already working hard to get the new power unit off the ground and ready for the new era. For the other brand of the Volkswagen Group, the search was a little more difficult. Red Bull seemed to be the right partner for Porsche, but that deal fell through, and now as it stands, there is no other constructor stepping into the frame. So what went wrong with Red Bull? Where Audi will build its own engines, Porsche only wanted to link their name to a Formula 1 team. However, they also wanted to gain a voice at the table in terms of control and decision making at any potential team they would partner up with. It was precisely at this point that things went south with Red Bull Racing. The Austrian racing stable is known for a rather short chain of command, with Helmut Marko, Christian Horner and also Adrian Newey the big decision makers. And this was something they didn't want to give up. It meant a no-go for a deal with Porsche, which was forced to look for another team. McLaren also seemed to be a candidate for a while, but those plans have not been followed up on. Now, it wasn't only the issue of control that was a major stumbling block in terms of the deal or potential deal with Red Bull Racing. The Austrian team has already set up Red Bull powertrains to produce their engines, and Porsche would have very little to add to that division as the brand has no infrastructure for an engine division. Now, Porsche could therefore benefit from the technology at Red Bull powertrains and then implement it into their road cars. But that seems a little like a one-way street of information sharing at this point. According to the race, Porsche will now focus on the other racing classes away from Formula 1. The German brand is active in Formula E and more attention will therefore be paid to it. In addition, the brand is thinking of participating in the Le Mans 24-hour event. The idea is to revive the 963 hypercar project. Is there a small chance for Formula 1 participation? Well, yes, there is still a chance that Porsche could be joining the Formula 1 grid, and of course, you should never say never when it comes to the modern day world of Formula 1. Although participation has not yet officially been ruled out by Porsche, the chances, you have to say, are getting smaller and smaller by the day. After the failed talks with Red Bull Racing, Porsche still insisted there were some options to joining an existing team, although no names ever really materialized as to which teams those could be. The idea from Porsche was to still buy a stake within a team, as the company does not have the infrastructure at the moment set up to run an engine project on its own. That is why Porsche has not yet registered as an engine manufacturer for the new regulations when it comes to the 2026 season. For the time being then, Porsche is pulling the plug on the whole project, but the Volkswagen Group will keep an eye on any possible opportunities that may come their way in the future. So don't be surprised if you see the brand committing itself to a Formula 1 team eventually later on down the road. Just have to watch this space, and we will be watching this space for you at gpfans.com and of course on GPFans Global across social media for the latest breaking news in the world of Formula 1. And don't forget to give us a click down below to subscribe to the video channel here on YouTube, and of course let us know in the comments section below what you think the future holds for Porsche and its relationship with Formula 1. Will we see such an iconic brand from the world of motoring once again returning to the Formula 1 grid, or have they burnt their bridges already with any prospective suitors? Do they need the infrastructure of their own engine project to perhaps return to the grid? We'd love to hear your thoughts as always.